Mahadeo, journalist and community reporter, and I dedicate my time to searching for the stories that matter the most. Positive, uplifting, and inspiring stories that spotlight the challenges and obstacles we conquer to become the people who we are today. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of all the fairy tale lifestyles that people seem to be living on social media. Girl, you did not wake up like that. I'm interested in the genuine connections, the honest opinions, and the real uncut version of your true self. This show is about keeping it 100% real, deconstructing who we are and what we're all about. Join me as we sit down with individuals to discuss the personal struggles, the many challenges, and the moments that define us on this journey of self-discovery. Let's be real, life isn't fair and people make mistakes, but every opportunity is a learning experience. Let's discover the truth together right here on Real Talk. Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Real Talk. Oh no! Don't you love how that my mic was, I was like something's missing. This is what happens. This is Real Talk, guys. Anyways. Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Real Talk. Now you can hear me, I'm sure. Welcome. It's another Friday, guys. Thank you again for joining us here on my TCN TV. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also, if you have any questions during the show, because we have a really interesting topic today, make sure that you do tweet us your questions using the hashtag RealTalkTCN. So guys, today on the show, we are going to be talking about public safety and also youth crime and violence. So I think if anybody watches the news, you've seen some of the stories that have been happening lately. I know that there's been a bunch of things, like really, really crazy things, and I speak specifically for Brampton only because I live here. But things where people are getting shot on the 410, just driving in their cars. Guys, I don't know what is happening here or where these things are coming from or who's involved. But again, it's very, very, very dangerous, not only for the people involved, but also for the public in general. Because think about it, you're driving on the highway and some car is getting shot up next to you. Like, how do you even react in that situation? That's crazy for me to even think about. I actually drove by the accident where the car was like flipped in the ditch on Monday. And again, I was just like, what is happening here? How did this happen? Today on the show, I have a very special guest, this gentleman that I actually met last year at the Harry Jerome Awards. And his name is Ron Cunningham, and he's the founder of Citizens for the Advancement of Community Development, which is the CACD in Mississauga. And he's coming in here today to talk about a presentation that he actually gave this week on youth violence. So he did a little bit, so he's actually originally from the financial sector, and he kind of worked his way through the financial sector, and then he ended his career. Well, I don't think he ended his career, but he actually decided to start his own private practice, and then he came in, and now he's actually fulfilling one of his passions, which is helping youth at risk. And so today on the show, he's going to be talking about the presentation that he gave on Tuesday at Safe City Mississauga conference about youth violence and criminal activity. So he's going to be covering things like the background of youth violence, roots, and also ways that we can actually kind of help the problem. Like, we're going to review the roots of youth violence, kind of preventative measures, and different things like that. And again, if you have any questions, make sure that you do reach out to us either on Facebook or on Twitter or on YouTube and send us your questions, and I'm sure that Ron will be happy to answer them. So we'll be right back. You guys are watching Real Talk, and we'll be right back with Ron.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
my name is Anisha, and I'm the production manager of TCN Network. Have you ever wanted to host your own show? Do you have a message to share? Well, you're in luck. We are looking for dynamic and unique individuals to host their own shows. We are seeking people who are committed, motivated, and energetic. Do you want to be the next Jimmy Fallon, Ellen DeGeneres, or Shane and Ryan from BuzzFeed Unsolved? Start here. Fill out the Propose a Show form on mytcntv.com. We're here to educate, support, and build the community. Can you lead by example? Go the extra mile and seek knowledge? Are you humble, disciplined, responsible, selfless, and enthusiastic? Those are our core values. And if you identify with them, you could be part of a growing network that focuses on positivity and uplifting our community. We can't wait for you to join us on TCN Network and hope to hear from you soon.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk, and I'm your host, Alyssa Mahadeo. Guys, here today on the show, I have Mr. Ron Cunningham. And Ron, I've met Ron last year at the Harry Jerome Awards. I was telling our audience. And we had a really great conversation. I think it was at the Media Lounge, a little bit about the organization that you founded and that you work for and some of the work that you do with the youth in the community. So for the audience, let them know a little bit about you, a little bit about your background. I explained to them that you come from a background in the finance sector, and now you're working in the community, doing community advocacy work and helping, again, the community and just, you know, having these conversations that are very much needed. So, yeah.
Well, I've been introduced somewhat, but I'm Ron Cunningham, and I'm the founder and the executive director of Citizens for the Advancement of Community Development, abbreviated CACD. Now, I started out in the banking sector. And I've worked there for about 20 years, working in the Chief Accountant's Division and Corporate Finance for Bank of Montreal, Bank of Nova Scotia, CIBC, Royal Trust, a subsidiary of Royal Bank, and also Banca Commerciale Italiana of Canada. So I've done a lot of work within the banking sector. But in terms of my transition from the financial sector to community development, I've always had a keen interest in corporate citizenship, you know, philanthropic. And even before I came here, I migrated from Jamaica, by the way, I was very involved in the community and in the church. And in fact, I can recall being the superintendent of the Sunday school and president of the Youth Fellowship Organization, being involved with community group, sports group. And I can remember going to a conference, church conference, of superintendent of the Jamaica Baptist Union. It turned out that I was the youngest superintendent, you know, I was 17.
Young man.
So I'm just saying that the roots of being involved with community endeavor, be it faith or otherwise, has been from a very early age. But while here and still working in the banking sector, I would run off to Jamaica every opportunity I get to get involved with, you know, community endeavors.
So what kind of work were you doing while you were in Jamaica?
Well, in that regard, going back, I would take back computers and sewing machines, setting up computer centers and sewing centers where to provide skills trade for these youth. I would also take teachers from George Brown to teach life skills, because those were things that I had noticed were greatly in demand in Jamaica in terms of adjusting the youth's attitude and their behavior. I also work quite closely with the University of Toronto to implement the World Health Organization Healthy School Initiative. And this I was doing with Professor Andy Anderson. And work quite closely with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Sports and Community Development. Went on to do this also with the University of the West Indies. So I was doing all of that kind of stuff and working quite closely with Heart Trust in Jamaica, the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, to reach all these youths in the inner city community. And that is what really spooked me in terms of seeing how moved these kids were. You know, when these teachers come, we take down these individuals to assist them in, you know, the social skills development. And when I see what was happening, I said, my, oh my, there am I working in financial accounting, management accounting, taxation, audit, capital market, all the good stuff, working at head office.
Yeah.
You know, I had my travel to the United States. I was in charge of the U.S. subsidiaries for Scotiabank, traveling to a place like Atlanta, San Francisco, New York, which were the main booking points. So it's not that it was a deadbeat job.
No, you had a great job.
You know, but what I see that was really happening with these kids, I was so turned on. And then again, with my faith-based, you know, background, I was greatly struck by Matthew 25:31, where he speaks about the sheep and the goat. And when the Lord said, you know, I was hungry, you fed me not, you know, I was in prison, you didn't visit me, etc., etc.
Of course.
Those things were playing on my mind. So with the effect of what was happening to these youth, and with this overriding religious belief and passion and drive to make change happen, I decided to leave the financial sector to start my own accounting practice, so I would be better able to
manage your time.
Exactly, and go to Jamaica when I want, except using my 4 weeks vacation.
Yeah.
So I did that, and continue to address issues pertinent to youth justice, crime and violence, you know, youth employment, and those different things. But then in 2005, something happened, and it struck a chord with me.
Okay.
Jane Creever was shot while walking on the streets in Toronto. And it occurred to me that here am I running off to Jamaica every opportunity I get, when the same thing is happening right here in my own backyard. So I ended my accounting practice and went on full-time to pursue community work.
So again, that story, for people who maybe don't know about that story, what were the details of that story so that they can...
Well, it's just during Christmas time. I think it was in December.
Yeah, and what a time.
You know, people are just happy and trying to have fun. And here was this young girl, I think she was probably 16 or 15, traveling with friends, just shopping on Yonge Street. I think it was around Yonge and Dundas. And when you think of it, you know, it's a festive season. You're with your friends. You know, you're buying gifts for family and others. And then to be struck down by, you know, bullets in this fashion.
And she was innocent, right? She was a bystander.
Nothing to do with that. Just an innocent bystander. And we see all that's happening today. The same thing continues even now.
So do you still go back to Jamaica to do periodically these conferences with the youth down there?
We do, but not to the extent
that
as
you
we
used
did
to,
in the early stage. So it's much more limited. Most of my time is really confined
here
to what I'm doing here.
And I mean, I feel like that makes sense just because, again, you are an active member of this community. So when you see things happening right in your own backyard, you're just like, we need to change this.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
So you started the CACD. And what did that look like to you? Like, who did you reach out to? Who did you decide to talk to? Like, who were you kind of in partnership with when that?
Interestingly, with the beginning of CACD, I would reach out to other existing organizations. I particularly moved in on the school boards. So I work quite closely with 2 school board in Peel. And I also initially was running workshops in schools. And had a number of forums where I tried to bring the community together, the police, the school, and various other organizations. So that was the approach taken. And then from there, I delve into the work of using a kind of a social approach, which I'll talk about later. But it continued like that, working, running workshops at the YMCA and various schools, as I mentioned before. And as things continued, the mayor of Mississauga saw the work that I was doing and said, we need you to get more involved in this community. In fact, I was doing work still in Jamaica and also in Toronto and in Brampton.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to kind of focus more on Mississauga.
In Mississauga.
As, you know, the need was increasing. We see the trek of crime moving from the big city into smaller city like Mississauga and Brampton.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been living in Brampton for so long now that I've seen kind of the trend of how it's happened. And I know, like, when we first moved out here to Brampton, there was really nothing out here. So there wasn't, like, again, there wasn't a lot of older students. Everyone was kind of, like, really, really young. And when I hear about what things that are happening now in, like, 2018, it's, like, I'm kind of a little bit shocked that these are happening in Brampton. Because we're so used to hearing about it, like, in more, like, kind of infamous, like, inner city cities.
Yes.
So when you hear about it in like a suburb like ours, you're just like, oh no, is that happening out here now? You know, and then it affects the entire community as a whole because now you don't feel safe in your own city.
That's right. But the thing is, you know, we have to expect this to some extent, and at the same time, we have to be prepared to deal with it because naturally, there is likely to have more crime in larger city than we have in smaller ones.
And Brampton has grown, that's the thing. Yeah.
Naturally, you have to expect these things.
So we're going to actually take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation here on Real Talk. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk, and I'm your host, Alyssa Mahadeo. Guys, thank you again for joining us here today on the show. Again, today I have on the show Mr. Ron Cunningham, and Ron is here, and he's talking to a little bit today about a presentation, actually, that he did this past week on Tuesday, I believe it was.
That's correct.
At the Safe City Mississauga Conference. So tell us a little bit about what this presentation was for, and kind of the community that you did talk to.
Okay. Well, Safe City is a registered charitable organization located in Mississauga. And on a yearly basis, they have these conferences. But it's an organization that is particularly keen on running programs and activities with respect to crime and violence as it occurs in the city. And they are doing a tremendous job there. I've worked with Safe City over the years and found them to be an excellent organization. So actually I was asked to participate and to do a presentation on essentially what we, CACD as an organization, is doing with respect to crime and violence. So my actual talk was crime, youth violence prevention, a social development approach. Because we use this approach of crime prevention through social development, where we address issues that stem from various risk factors. So in my presentation, I was keen to stress and to point out a number of risk factors that cause youth violence. But at the same time, what I find, and I also mention in this presentation, is that we constantly gravitate to when certain type of criminal activity occur.
Yep.
And then there is a spike and we start to run around to do things. But the approach that we take at CACD and the approach that I suggest that we should follow, and it's being followed, is that we use this preventative approach where we work on risk factors. And you might recall this report done by the Attorney General of Ontario, Roy McMurtry, and Dr. Alvin Curlin back in November of 2008, where they do a study across the province of the various, the cause of youth violence.
Yeah.
And it was determined that underneath this whole flow of activities are key social factors. So to a large extent, that was stressed. And of course, it is something that we constantly see. We see in areas of poverty, which is something not of itself, that cause violence. But when it is combined with other factors, it certainly leads to, those type of activities. Invariably, we see unemployment among youth. The element of even community design also impacts crime and violence among youth.
Yeah.
We can see, for example, even Regent Park, the change that took place. Now people are having such great pride in owning their own apartments now. And when you think of how it was done in terms of the opportunity for someone to own their property by just maybe making available 5%, on a monthly basis, rather than coming up with this big lump sum.
Yeah.
So there are a number of factors that are there that is keeping, people in this kind of situation. And we talk about the youth violence issue. We know that the bulk of these violence are committed by men, for one thing, and secondly, by youth. So in this regard, if we focus on these social issues, I believe that we can certainly stem the level of crime and violence.
I know that one of the things that you guys kind of address is the fact that a lot of these youth in the community who are becoming, I want to say they're becoming victims of youth crime and violence because, they have idle time.
Yes.
There's a lot of idle time in between the hours of the fact that they're done school, so they're no longer in school. Either they're also kind of sometimes considered problem children in school already, and they're not getting kind of the care and attention that they would need from the teachers to spend the time with them to really find out what's going on. Even to sit with guidance counselors to really talk to someone who kind of is going to understand them on that personal level. And then now they're leaving school, and then outside of school, either their parents aren't home, their parents work late, so they're not going straight home, and they're kind of ending up with this idle time, and then in that time is where they find themselves in situations where they shouldn't be.
Exactly. It is certainly the case, and that is also one of the focus of our program, because as you mentioned, what we found is that between the time frame of 3 to 6, this is when most of these kids tend to go afoul of the law, because they don't, some of them that is, don't have their parents there, because particularly those that are experiencing these various negative risk factors, they're from a single family household.
Yeah.
The parents don't have the level of income to get them involved in various after school programs where you're paying for it, whether it be dance, whether it be music, taekwondo, you name it. So that is when they tend to go foul of the law. So what CACD and other organizations are doing, which is to have after-school program, free after-school program, where they can get assistance with homework, they can get involved with sports and the various activities that goes on. So what you're saying is so true.
And I think it's also about getting away from this stigma because, again, a lot of the people or a lot of the young people that are affected by this are usually people of color, right? It's usually the smaller minority communities that are finding themselves in these situations because, again, their parents are working 3 and 4 jobs just to make ends meet. They're living in low-income housing, or, again, their parents work from 9 to whatever time of the night. And they don't really have the time to spend with the children. And it's not that they don't love their children. It's just that again, they've got to work to make ends meet,
sure,
right?
Sure.
But and I think that's why extracurricular activities even started in schools to begin with, as kind of that kind of way. But again, a lot of students aren't applying or like getting involved in those things. So how is your group encouraging those students to now get involved in the programs that you guys offer?
Well, it's always a challenge because there is so much distractions out there. Now, in the earlier days, there was less to do.
Yeah.
Now these kids have their cell phones, so they are so connected.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of distraction. But what we do, we actually work quite closely with the school boards.
Okay.
And we work with middle school kids and high school kids. And as a result, we do get referrals from the school for kids who are showing behavioral, issues. And we also work to identify the type of program by doing surveys with the schools, the kids, and parents in the community. So we are able, in a somewhat scientific way, identify the type of programs that kids really want to do, during their spare time. And then again, like I said before, with teachers seeing what's going on in school, are able to refer some of these kids to us. And in that way, we are able to address some of.
And are you meeting with these kids and their parents?
Not to the extent that we would like, because it's the after school period. And again, as I mentioned before, you're dealing with kids who have these social issues problem.
That's what
so the parents are rarely there, you know, and they are troubled too. They're going through so much. So that's one area of weakness that I find in the program in terms of working with the parents and the students at the same time.
Yeah, because I feel like having that open communication between parents, yourself, and the children would be really kind of helpful to, aiding the process and also taking it home.
Yes.
Right?
And we find in terms of results, yes, most definitely. When you have opportunity of working with the parents and the students, I'm not saying they are gung-ho to sit in the same classroom with their parents, but especially when parents come to pick them up, they stand outside to see what's going on in the program room. We are able to talk to them at the same time. We find that those who have that type of situation are more involved, and the program is generally have greater benefit attached to it.
For sure. So we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. I want to hear about some of the kind of the root causes of youth violence and where it comes from. Okay. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Ho, 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 ho.
Are you retiring smart? Make your home's equity work for you. With your home's equity and our 30 years of experience, the Retire Smart Properties team can help you achieve the quality of life you've always wanted. Our services are 360 degrees. We'll give you advice, take care of staging and selling, and help you find the perfect home and community to transition to. It's time to enjoy the retirement lifestyle you deserve. Visit our website today to learn how you can use your home to retire comfortably. The Retire Smart Properties team, powered by RE/MAX West.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk. I'm your host, Alyssa Mahadeo, and today on the show I have Ron Cunningham. And Ron is here, and he's breaking down a lot of interesting information in regards to youth violence prevention. And so he's talking a little bit about the Safe City Conference that he did a presentation at, and also about the organization that he works with, the CACD. Ron, I know before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about the organization, And then, you know, some of the things that kind of cause these children to kind of go astray.
Yes.
But what are some of the root causes, essentially, of where youth violence stems from?
Well, just to preface that, the whole approach that I mentioned before that we are taking in addressing root causes, we find that underneath the well-adjusted youth, there are certain social forces taking place that's driving them towards a better life. And then conversely, with those that go afoul of the law, the same type of approach take place, whereby they are encountering factors that driving them to make these bad choices. So, as I alluded to before, you have issue around poverty, you have issue around racism. There is also community design, which I alluded to also before, but there is also family issues, where in the home there's lack of understanding, empathy, you know, there is health issues, and that is another big one that is taking place. We have seen a lot of talk recently about mental health. And this is something where parents need to be able to identify these signs at a very early stage so that it can be, you know, be dealt with. The other areas is where youth are denied a voice in what's happening in their lives.
Yeah.
So these are some of the sociological issues that has been identified as root causes. But as I said before, we as a people need to see these things and then to find ways to prevent them. Unemployment. If youth are unemployed, we can just simply imagine the impact that that's having on their lives.
Yeah.
So it's all these things, and it's not any single one in isolation.
Yeah.
But when they are combined together and there's overlap, it forces. So it's not just family issues, it's what's happening in society and exactly what we all need to do to come together and to address these issues.
And it's also about like kind of who's influencing these youth.
These youths.
Right? So again,
Quite true.
That's how they kind of get involved in gang-related violence as well, right? Someone comes to them, they're just like, oh, you know, they see a small man and he's easily influenced by something that an older person has said. And he's like, oh, if you do this for me, you'll make this much money, right? So there's so many like different, again, there's so many different moving parts and factors, and it's a communication between parent and child, as well as the teachers also realizing kind of that this child needs a little bit more attention and help so that they don't end up in a situation down the road that's going to find them in trouble.
And we need all the parties together, the parents, the teacher, the community, faith-based, the government. Yeah. We all need to be a part of this. Yes.
So with the CACD, you have a bunch of different programs and works that you guys do. So tell me a little bit about your programs and what you guys offer.
Well, in terms of the program, I have mentioned briefly before the after-school program. But CACD, as I noted, use this social crime prevention through social development.
Yes.
A framework from which we select and develop program. But as we do this, the core and the center of this is positive youth development. So that's the basis on which we develop our programs. Now, as an accountant and someone that is involved in that, I'd just like to suggest this equation where positive youth development equal positive experience plus positive relationship plus positive environment.
Yeah.
And in so doing, our programs are geared into that framework. So in terms of positive experience, we enhance the strength of these young people through the various programs and activity that they are involved in. In terms of the relationship building, we realize that kids do learn quite a bit from their peers. So within the program design, we have kind of a mentoring approach. And we also use those that are at risk in the same program with those that are excelling in school.
Okay.
So they learn.
So you don't segregate them, so that they don't, again, so they don't feel like, you know, I'm a trouble, like, this is me, I'm in trouble, and I'm here with all these other, you know, delinquents.
No.
Yeah, so they don't feel like that. And that's great. Again, that probably does a lot to, like, positively affect their mental health.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, something that we do. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the whole elements of positive environment, mm-hmm. we do have our location at the Mississauga Valley Community Center. Mm-hmm. So that's that structure alone, mm-hmm. where there are always adults present, mm-hmm. it reinforces mm-hmm. the type of behavior that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. So that positive experience, positive relationship, and positive environment in terms of the space, mm-hmm. I think do help. Yeah. But apart from that, we run programs such as after-school program predominantly for middle school kids, where we offer things like art, social skills, music, dance, to keep them engaged, nutrition. And then we get the high school students to work with them, mm-hmm. again, mentoring these younger ones. Mm-hmm. And for these high school kids, they get their community service hours. Yeah. So they are motivated by that. Mm-hmm. And it's a great feeling for them to go back to school and help their middle school kids. Mm-hmm. And of course, they're doing this with our youth workers and interns that we use from college. Mm-hmm. So they're able to pick up quite a bit.
Yeah, because you're getting a hands-on experience, and so you're helping. Again, it's a lot of different moving parts, and everyone's helping everyone.
And then we do leadership, mentoring, financial literacy. Mm-hmm. We do things like health promotion, mm-hmm. crime and violence workshops. The crime and violence workshop is not something that we have on a daily basis. Okay. But we do have these various forums where we would bring in the police officer, we'll bring in lawyer, judges, mm-hmm. to speak mm-hmm. to these youth.
What are some of the questions that these youth ask?
Well, for some, they feel, especially when it comes to the police, they feel that the police are dealing with them somewhat unfairly.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's when you have a group of colored students in a room with the police, all of a sudden I feel like they might feel like they're under attack.
Yes. But it works mm-hmm. because, of course, these police are trained and they are able to explain what they're doing. And I think it's great. Mm-hmm. It is for that reason why I personally like community-based policing. Yeah. You know, the police is doing a great job in terms of what they do, but I just think the approach is too reactive. Yeah. And that is why I'm pushing for more preventative approach. Mm-hmm. And I find that the community policing mm-hmm. is something more in line with that. Mm-hmm. This is something I did in Jamaica. We take correctional service officers from here also to Jamaica. Mm-hmm. We work quite closely with the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Mm-hmm. In fact, some years ago, I brought the deputy chief of police here to meet with Chief Blair and Deputy Chief Peter Slowly. Okay. And also to meet with the mayor of Mississauga and also Deputy Chief McCord mm-hmm. of the region of Peel. Mm-hmm. And they had a wonderful conversation, exchange of ideas that can be done. But the point I'm making is on community policing. Mm-hmm. We were running community policing forum in Jamaica mm-hmm. where we bring the police, the local government, and community leaders together. Yeah. So again, this approach I think is quite beneficial. Yeah. When we have the police talking to the kids in those type of settings. Yeah. Rather than the big stick approach, that is often seen from the traditional.
Well, with the recent conversations surrounding carding and things like that as well, it's very, very important that the police actually speak to these people one-on-one, these youth especially one-on-one, so that when they do meet them out in the field, they're more informed themselves, so they understand, why something might be happening, or if they are being asked for information, if they should be able to, if they're surrendering that information, or if they shouldn't do it, or, mm-hmm. What their rights are in that situation. Sure. Because I feel like a lot of the youth, when they're walking around, they're uninformed, and then they're scared.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I find that when we have these sessions with police and also lawyers and judges, mm-hmm. they get to learn more about their rights. Yeah. And that's important. I feel like all of us could learn a lot more about our rights as citizens here in the community.
So we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be right back. We're going to have another great conversation right after the break, so we'll be right back.
My name is Anisha, and I'm the production manager of TCN Network. Have you ever wanted to host your own show? Do you have a message to share? Well, you're in luck. We are looking for dynamic and unique individuals to host their own shows. We are seeking people who are committed, motivated, and energetic. Do you want to be the next Jimmy Fallon, Ellen DeGeneres, or Shane and Ryan from BuzzFeed Unsolved? Start here. Fill out the Propose a Show form on mytcntv.com. We're here to educate, support, and build the community. Can you lead by example? Go the extra mile and seek knowledge? Are you humble, disciplined, responsible, selfless, and enthusiastic? Those are our core values. And if you identify with them, you could be part of a growing network that focuses on positivity and uplifting our community. We can't wait for you to join us on TCN Network and hope to hear from you soon.
Welcome back. You're watching Real Talk. Guys, make sure that if you have any questions that you either reach out to us on Facebook. I know I've included Ron's social media links for the organization as well in the video down below. So if you have any questions or you're an organization looking to reach out to them, that you do make sure and connect with Ron. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. So we're having a really great conversation today, just talking about youth violence, community development, solution-oriented plans in order to help the prevention of these things down the road. And again, I speak to a lot on this show about my own experience being a person of color, being a woman of color. Mm-hmm. Now, being a girl, I don't get treated the same way as a boy would. And that happens in my own household, and that also happens in the community. So there's a lot of different stigmas and stuff that are raised when it comes to either being female or male in the community, and who kind of gets who's more targeted when it comes to a lot of things that happen surrounding violence, surrounding crime. When the police are out looking for someone and they give you a kind of a description of what they look like, and it's black, male, 25, automatically I know that our community all of a sudden feels this fear, or they feel like they're being targeted, and they feel that no one is hearing them in that situation, and that their young men are not safe because of the fact that they've been profiled that way. Mm-hmm. And so I know that we have to bring that attention on male students and how the different situations surrounding them and the conversations that we have with them, and even just the way that they carry themselves in society. And so what are some of the conversations that you guys have had surrounding that?
Well, with respect to that, we know that crime and violence is committed more by males. Mm-hmm. And we also find that they're also committed by more youth. So with that said, we can imagine where the high is on these black young men. Mm-hmm. But we have also heard and learned from them that they are being targeted in school. They are not encouraged to succeed academically by non-white teachers and their peers.
Expectations are very low.
Very low for them. Mm-hmm. And that, they are also feared. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stigma, and they are marginalized within the school system.
Yeah.
So that is something that is of big concern, because that's a place where they spend most of their time. Mm-hmm. And naturally, we know that for someone to get out of their economic situation, mm-hmm. they need employment. They need a good education. And if the place where they're going to learn, they're being driven out, then naturally mm-hmm. they're going to gravitate towards crime and mm-hmm. violence. So I think there is a particular interest for the community to change their views about how they treat these young men. Mm-hmm. And not that they themselves are naturally innate to committed crime and violence. But as I mentioned before, there are a number of social factors that plays on them. And then to make matters worse, even when they try to deal with the situation by going to school, we are now experiencing where the very teacher who is supposed to guide them are treating them in the manner that they are treated.
Well, I mean, this happens in the public space as well. When you go to, like, if you see a group of black male students hanging out at a mall,
yes,
automatically they're going to be targeted because people are going to suspect them of shoplifting,
exactly,
of doing something mischievous. And they might not be doing that, obviously. Like, we're not saying that, just because you see a group of students, it could be anybody.
That's
to be
right.
honest, like, you don't honestly, sometimes you hear stories about people who have committed crimes and you're just like, really? I wouldn't have thought that of that person. And to just, completely just identify that person and just assume they're going to do that, it takes a toll on you as a person yourself and your mental health, because now you're walking around like there's a target on your back all the time.
Yes. And this is what they're saying. They also talk about being targeted by the police, And I know the police do mean good. I work quite a bit with the police, and they're doing a great job. But at the same time, there are these situations, and we find that black boys in particular are having this hard time. And by all means, something needs to be done. We have noticed that even the Peel School Board have recently made some decision to have greater cultural responsive programs for blacks in school. And sometimes I wonder, what has happened to teaching black history in school?
Yeah.
So what we at CACD is even doing, we try to expand our the Black History Month. It's just a small window, but we still do include all these students and give them an opportunity to participate and to learn more about their culture.
I think it's very important that we stress to these young people that just because you're a person of color, you're not at a disadvantage in society. You're just like everyone else. You have the same opportunities. You're going to the same schools as them. And then encourage them also to apply themselves academically, right? So find what they're passionate about, like through the programs that you guys offer,
yes.
Whether it be in arts, whether it be in academics, whatever it may be, to seek those out and also to talk to those people that can help you, who are offering those programs, who are willing to talk to you and communicate with you, and to talk to your parents about these things and let them know what you need. Because again, if your parents are the people who are working all the time and they don't have the time to really sit down and help you, to teach you, to educate you, you need to let them know what you need so that you can be better. Because down the road, this is what your long-term plan is.
Exactly. I think we need you to come and run a workshop for us at CACD. But certainly this is what is required. And this is what we try to do in a number of other organizations. We are working so hard to make this thing happen. But I find, though, that we do lack the financial support that we need.
As with any charity organization, I feel like you guys are the ones who are out here kind of doing the most and rallying for the community the most. And people it's not being funded. It needs to be funded a lot more, because the programs that you offer are benefiting so many people.
Yes. And that's the situation that we are faced with right now, that we have to be cutting back on the various programs that we offer as a result of lack of funding. So, the appeal is there for listeners to do whatever they can to help not just CACD, the other organizations that are addressing these social issues.
And you yourself, you have children yourself?
Yes, I have 2 boys. They're grown up.
And what kind of conversations did you have with them growing up?
Well, just the same. Naturally, one of the things that I enforce, we got to have dinner together as much as possible.
Yeah.
And by all means, on weekend, we sit at that dinner table and we talk. So they understand me, and and I understand them. I know what are of interest to them. I tell you, even for my kids, I used to allow them to come down on Fridays to the bank, even when they were 13 and 10.
Okay.
They were 3 years apart.
Yeah.
Take the subway, and they would come down, and they would be there and mingling with the workers.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want them to grow up with any fear of any opportunity you know, working
you don't want them to grow up
sector.
sheltered, because
Not
then they're
at
gonna
all.
again you're gonna face the world with this type of fear
Exactly.
that the world is against you at all times.
And they were there.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of them is an accountant, he's a CPA.
Oh, that's really great too.
You know, so they
Yeah.
follow the.
Yeah.
I think the enticement of it all
Yeah.
had its roots, and
And I'm sure, I mean, you encouraging to do things like that really develop their social skills, their people skills,
Oh, by all
and their
means.
communication skills when it comes to, again, talking to adults and having those conversations with other people outside of people who they're already comfortable with, like their family and their friends
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
relationships and general things like that. So, you know what, Ron, thank you so much for coming on the show today, for sharing in this topic. I'm sure that the audience garnered a lot from this conversation.
Well, I hope they did, and
Mm-hmm.
my sore throat did not prevent them from hearing what I was trying to say.
I'm sure you communicated very well.
Well, it was certainly a pleasure of mine to be here and to talk about this issue. Not that I have too much to say,
Yeah.
but I hope with this program,
Yeah.
the conversation will continue, and the desired help that these students need, will be made by others as they listen in.
That's what we strive to do here on Real Talk, guys. We strive to keep these conversations going. We strive to talk about the things that aren't usually getting all of the coverage that it needs, or just that people have concerns about, and people are just like, but why aren't we talking about this? It's affecting us every day in our day-to-day lives. Why aren't we talking about it? And I think, again, the topic of youth violence is something that if you haven't been affected by it, don't ever think that you can't be affected by it. I feel like it's always something that you should prepare yourself for. It's always something that you think about the preventative measures that can happen, especially, again, with young students. Children are very easily influenced by the people around them. So it's making sure that these children and these young people have the positive influences in their life, and that they're doing things that are putting them on the path to success.
Thank you.
So thank you guys again for joining us on another edition of Real Talk. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're looking to reach out to us, make sure that you check the links in the box below. And I will see you again next week.